SFDX.
All right, going live now. Hi. Welcome to System.debug. We're your hosts. Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Nate Pepper.
And we're going to be talking about
SFDX use with sandboxes and communities.
It's a very exciting show today.
Excellent.
Insert really cool noise here if we had one.
Yes, we're working on our spiel for the beginning, also with some non-amazing guitar intro sounds, but something similar.
For real. We got some awesome stuff.
So let's see.
Heads.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, do we have any upcoming streaming event, any announcements?
So one thing to announce is the fact that due to Corona and some of the states of emergency that have been declared in areas, some locations for some of the attendees, Banff Dreamin' has been moved. It is not going to be held this week. Instead, Banff Dreamin' has been moved to November 20th. So yours truly will be heading out there November 19th, enjoying the awesomeness of Banff in the cold winter. I'm guessing Alberta's going to be really cold in the winter. I might have to get a little bit of a warmer jacket, like my Levi's jacket and my warm to 40, 50 degree jacket. I've got a winter hat, so I'm good with the hat.
Definitely,
yeah.
The winter hat. Winter hat is definitely important. Also, make sure to clear your cache. Clear your cache before you go.
Yeah, always clear your cache. And then I heard, was it Southeast Streaming was moved too? I think Southeast Streaming. So. Yeah. Let me pull that one up. I'm gonna grab that date for what was going on there. Southeast Streaming.
Still should be safe to roadmap for Trailhead DX in June. I think it's like June 9th, first week or two in June. So do look for that. That's my favorite event of the year.
Dude, that is like the best Salesforce run event of the year.
Where I met you.
Dude, it was fantastic. I love meeting you.
I've still got that backpack. I think that backpack needs to be retired. It's got a drumstick-sized hole that my head always pops out of.
It's right here.
Oh, mine is so much more light green than that because of sun exposure.
Right, but well, we don't have that much sun.
And it's
plus I don't go outside.
Was it a Trailhead? I'm sorry, Dreamforce is what, 200,000 people.
Yeah.
And Trailhead DX is 20.
3.
Yeah, 3,000.
I thought it was like the one that we met. It was like 3,000 people that year because we met years ago.
Wow. Yep. Second one.
Yeah. Second one. It's like 3,000 or 5,000 people at that one.
Yeah. But it's all. I mean.
Do you still have the hat? That awesome hat.
With the deployment fit, the March Hare hat with the Mad Hatter hat.
Mad Hatter hat.
I don't know where that went. It got left at some club somewhere.
Hat.
Yeah,
I
had the same fraction. So what I did is I found a change set that I could do that ended up with the same fraction that the Mad Hatter has in Alice in Wonderland. It was like 10/6 or something. But and then I got a screenshot of it, and I went to Kinko's. Kinko's.
Like a brick and mortar store?
Yes, I went to a brick and mortar store and printed it out.
Wow.
And I put that in my hat.
You didn't order it?
No, off of a no.
Well, no, just so that you didn't have to go there. Like they're online.
I work from home. It's nice to get out of the house, You know this.
I work from home. I don't like to leave the house because of that. I like grown accustomed to not leaving.
No, like I get the whole, like I can take a picture of my check from my phone, but then what do I do with the check? That's stuff I have to deal with. No, just go to the bank. I give them the check. They deposit it. I don't have to deal with the check. I don't
You
need,
cut it
no, I
up.
don't own a shredder. I don't own a shredder that
You cut
works.
it up. I rip it. That's what I do. I like rip it in pieces and throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, I get my Zen ripping practice out of gardening and weeding. So
I
yeah,
don't have a yard. I live in a building.
I have a backyard, so that's what I rip and shred for.
Wow. Sounds like a lot of effort and grown-upping.
So
Southeast streaming is August 20th to 21st.
there we go. Looks like, but Trailhead is open.
The trailhead is open.
Trailhead
Yeah.
is wide open. Make sure to up on your super badges. If anybody gets through the Aura Specialist component badge, make sure to get in touch with us, and I will be responding as soon as possible, especially if you're on step 8.
Okay. Are you stuck? Are you stuck? Do you need help?
I don't even check the boat app anymore. I strictly stay on the web page and VS Code.
The one that has the volunteers app that you install in the reports, like every time it says one report is right, the next report breaks. But as soon as I get that report right, the next report, the report I just fixed, was broken. I just started new org 3 times before I got that one to start going through to get the report step right.
Is that the Lex rollout?
I think it's a Lex rollout. Yeah.
I've got a step-by-step on step 7. Oh my God, step 7?
Almost murdered those reports. I was so furious. I was like, I need a new org. I finally gave up after 4 days of the report breaking. After I fixed it and moved to the next report, then the other report would break again. And I was like, why do you hate me reports?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was murderous.
I mean, I came into Salesforce through the data path, essentially, because I used to be an Excel monkey who taught myself VBA. And when I started at Salesforce, I started with Salesforce jobs. I always was the Salesforce admin Cody person.
Okay.
To the
Jack of all trades.
Next to the person that did the reporting and all that. So I was always right next to that. And like, oh, I'm not seeing what I should. Check the date range, right? Number one, check the date range. And I'm so far away from that now. I don't even think I've made a joined report, including Trailhead, ever. No, I've never made a
I don't know if there are joined reports anywhere on Trailhead.
Yeah. So,
I don't think I've built one either.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so after I finished those report ones, I never did the next step because I was just so glad I finally got through that one that I was done. I was like, that's it. I'm finished. I don't need to finish this super badge because I got through the part that I hated.
Yeah, with the Friends with Boats app, I've found that, when I'm working, I always have the app or the community loaded, and then I've got the code and source tree or Git or something, and terminal maybe, and I'm checking to see what the app is loading. And I find that with Trailhead sometimes it doesn't matter if it's working in the app or not. It just matters if it's validating.
Yeah.
Pressures. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, make sure to check your local admin, developer, women in tech groups for events or postponements / cancellations due to the
local health
COVID factors.
Yeah.
And make sure that if you want to remove COVID-19 from your design attribute, that you remove it from any components and communities that it's currently published in.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So today, what do we got on the docket?
So today we're talking about DX, deployment-y stuff, and Community Cloud, which is making me so happy. I love the communities. They make me so happy. They're my fave.
So here's a question to start out communities development. Meg, you are the community guru of anybody on system.debug. So why don't you start out by giving us hey, this is it may not be the long history, you're probably still doing it with possibly the majority of your clients, but what is the development deployment route of doing stuff with the community? Where do you go?
So communities have come a long way when it comes to deployments. So initially, the way that when Community Cloud was first there, I would say that the first and only way that you could really deploy them was with the import export methodology outside of rebuild, which would be to go into the site.com area of your community to export the site.com file, to go into your target org, create a community with the same name. It's always got to have the same name, the same URL suffix. You've got to keep that the same. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to do a deployment.
Were you far back enough where you actually had the I download this to my computer to do that?
That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, that is in the S control realm for me. I'm glad I missed the boat, unfortunately.
So change sets with communities didn't come out until like 3 years ago. 3 or 4, not even 4 years ago, because it was only when I was at 7 summits that the change sets with communities came out. So for my first year or so, or year and a half, or 2 years almost working with them, we had to do the download it to your hard drive method to deploy.
And aren't there 3? So when change sets, which is
so change sets. So it used to be my preferred method was the import export. Change sets when they first came out didn't always work. Change sets are now a pretty great way to go. Chances are, out of all the ways to deploy, change sets are going to be your most tried and true method. You're going to have more issues going with the metadata API than you will with going with a change set. And that add dependencies option is really going to help you with change sets, because you need all those dependencies in your org before you can deploy the community.
Oh, and you
deploy all your stuff first.
Like for instance, you add things to a set, it will add things that depends on.
Well, you've got to hit the add dependencies button and go in and add those things yourself.
Got it. I feel like that's changed. Has that changed in the past 3 to 5 years?
Nope.
No?
Nope. It's always been that way. Good. Now, when you're building a package in dev org, it adds those for you. It'll add the dependencies automatically. That's what you're thinking
like when you create a package, not a package XML,
not
like
a package
manifest.
like a change set,
okay,
but a package like a app to go to the app exchange. It adds
like developer org. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So wait, when they added metadata API support for this in change sets, aren't there are 3 things, right? Network.
So you need your network, you need your site.com, and you need your custom site.
Custom site and site.com. So now,
plus you need to make sure everything referenced in that community is either there, or some things can be deployed with it, but a lot of things need to be deployed in advance.
Which reminds me, we'll get back to I think in a while, we'll get back to the, what's that new pilot?
The Experience Bundle API, which is no longer pilot, that is GA, baby, with Spring. Man. And it's amazing.
Yeah, I need to figure that out, because
it's so pretty princess. I love it.
It's
actually like wearing sparkles and glitter.
Yeah, so we recently had a community app where we initially had 3 different components, like a metrics header. When you click a metric, it shows you the list of S objects for that, and then when you click a row, it shows you the detail.
Nice.
On the left sidebar, left.
Okay.
Not sure. Left sidebar and detail pane.
Left.
Problem is, each of those, as you know, in Aura and LWC context, there's no caching in static. Like every call to Apex is its own execution context. So it's not like Visualforce where, oh, cool, I've got a controller that's going to hang around. Like, no, it's like functional. Like,
so you don't have to clear your cache.
You get in and you get out. And so if you want to cache it, it's going to happen on the component, right? Like on the .cmp file in Aura, or maybe the .js file, like something that's wired, or it's been so long since I did intense LWC. But yeah, there's no like, hey, I made a static variable and it's going to stick around. No, it's gone. So in doing that, we said, hey, instead of having 3 different components, we're all going to put them into one wrapper component. So that's the only thing that you drag onto the page, right? But then we had all these different components that had implements put me on every page, right? Like force community available for our pages, or flexi page available for something. And we wanted to take that off because number one, we want less stuff in the list of components to drag onto a builder page. But also number
Right.
two, it's not going to work right if we've built it to work
Right.
inside of something else. And so, oh, cannot remove implements this because it's on a page. I went, oh my God, where's the experience
Where?
bundle API?
Okay. So my favorite ever. So I was sitting there trying to find this component once. I was working on a project, and this component, and we needed to make a change. And there was an attribute that needed to be removed, but we couldn't remove the attribute because it was used somewhere on a community page. But we couldn't find this community page. It was it was like some object, but it was the object plural, and it was like the related something, and we're like, this does not exist anywhere. So look through and look through, none of these pages exist. Well, lo and behold, somewhere, somehow, a client had created a page variation.
Oh, I was
And
the page variations today.
and this component, because it wasn't a component for that type of page, exact situation you're in, what it did is it disappeared. It did that thing where it didn't show up on the page, so it went invisible. AKA invisible to all you people that say real words. So you couldn't see it on the page, but the only way to see it was to click on the 3-liney thing above the gear on the
Page
left hand
structure.
side. Page
Yes.
structure. I love how you know the real names, and I'm like 3-liney above the gear,
The
left hand
hamburger
side.
inside the hamburger. No, inside the first of 2 gears.
Yeah. My favorite is the fact that you've got 2 gears on the same page on relatively the same location, upper left hand corner. Really great design. Very.
We'll link to the Salesforce idea that they differentiate those in the description.
Uh,
Yeah.
I really, really love a UI that's
Oh,
confusing.
so speaking of which,
Wait. Let me finish. So here it was. We couldn't find it because you couldn't see it. And the only way to find it would have been to manually go in. And of course, this page had been renamed, which is why it didn't match. It was only the API name that really would have. Yeah. Anyways, but so here it was. Only way to find it was to go in, look at the 3-liney thing above the gear on the left-hand side, and to find it in the page structure, manually delete it. And that's the way that the attribute could be changed.
But the nice thing is that even if like a malformed component is breaking the builder area body, more than often that page structure will let you click the trash can icon there.
Yes, which is where you can hit the trash can icon so that you can finally get rid of it.
Which has saved my Tookus more than once. So,
but if this would have been during, spring instead of, a prior release, any prior release before the Experience Bundle API, we could have just sent Control F on the folder within your IDE and would have found where it was, gone, oh, dude, it's not a page variation. I just got to delete this, or I could have deleted it and pushed it.
Yeah. So,
boom. 5 seconds instead of a day.
What is it? 2 parking lots before we get to, I want to get to like, what do you need to do to be ready for a deployment of communities no matter what, whether it's like import, export method of old, whether you do change sets or whether you do SFDX. Like there are still certain things you need to set up manually no matter what.
Can you see my screen?
I can.
You need to do all this.
Yeah. So, but 2 parking lots before that. Number 1, I have found out in the past week with taking these 3, they used to be 3 components that were able to be peers in an app. meaning like I could drag one onto the header, one onto the left 2/3, and one onto the right 1/3 for the whole header metrics, list, and detail pane, right?
Right.
So I found out we are fixing the spinner FML on all that, right?
Okay.
If everything's working as one component now, there really should only be one main spinner, right? That other things either send event to or something like to turn
Oh,
stuff,
okay. Okay.
right? Because we want the whole thing to spinnerify and kind
But
of.
you're not using that single component for all of those, are you? You've switched it to be the individual components, right?
No, so we've got a parent component which holds the header and it holds the list on the bottom left 2/3 and then the detail on the bottom right third.
Okay.
So we want a spinner on that parent component that kind of it's the spinner, right? So one thing we found out by doing that is that if you have overlapping Aura
So,
attribute names,
uh-huh.
that's not good.
So when your page is loading, does it all have to load at once within that component, or can your related list load one at a time, and then your detail load, and then your
So
header load?
the
How does that work?
one of the problems we were facing is performance. What we've got is we've got 8 metrics that we need to show on the top, like KPI metrics, right? These metrics span 5 S objects, like leads, events, custom object, I don't know, something else. So the problem is we've got, and the nice thing is that let's say you've got event and then you've also got like a missed event. We only need to get that list of things once from Sockle, and then we can do Apex filtering on it rather than make another, even if it's a count call, right? Account Sockle. So we're getting 8 lists of things. And we need to show either the size or a sum of some field on those lists anyway. So it's like, well, wait a minute, why don't we just get the whole list? But then we were getting the whole list in the header, and then we were getting the whole list in the list container part, right in the lower left.
Okay.
So that's why we brought everything into the same shop. Is wait a minute, if we're going to get all of this anyway, why don't we just then pass it down as an attribute on the child component, right? Instead of, and then we can cache everything, and then it's there. Another thing that we ran into when doing performance in Aura is here are the 2 biggest recommendations to speed up Aura performance. Number 1, componentize as little as possible. So like, don't make this, like when you walk through the expense and camping detail trailhead stuff,
Right.
you make like 4 or 5 different components. Well, the
Right.
problem is when you've got 1,000 calls to load into a list and then have a detail panel for, if you have a whole bunch, I was doing things so dynamically, it was beautiful. I'll send you the link there. It was just loading things, and it was, you know how you can't do square bracket like map notation in Aura, right? I made it so that you didn't need to. It would restructure into a separate JavaScript list array, field name, field value, field type. And so based on field type for each TD, right? Like each column in the row, I was saying if field type is text, show a lightning formatted text or whatever. Problem is, then you've got 5 columns, 1,000 things. That's 5,000 Aura ifs to evaluate. So it was slow. So we made it non-dynamic. But then the other one is don't componentize. So we made everything flat, right? Kind of like when you denormalize your table structure for Salesforce reporting. You can only go 4 objects deep, right? So then you end up doing things like, well, let's just put all this on one table. So yeah, that was my Aura community wonder this week.
Nice.
The past week or 2. But what we've been learning is that you can break things out into different packages when you're dealing with SFDX. So I guess let's go and let's say we spun up a sandbox, right? Your production org doesn't have a community yet. You're doing a brand new community.
You've got to make that community before you deploy.
So let's say you do all.
It's got to have the same name. Yeah.
What do you need to do in production to easily, like, not manually do all the stuff you did over when you're deploying?
So you have to create the community. You have to call it the same name.
You have to enable communities.
You have to enable communities. You have to create the community. You have to give it the same name. You have to give it the same URL. You're most likely going to want to create a custom domain after you deploy. I mean, and it depends on what types of things you have in your community as well for what steps you have to take. But to deploy, that enabling, that giving it the exact same name, and then making sure that you have the metadata that is in the community in the target environment. Those are your main items.
FLS, OLS, sharing settings.
So those are all going to be in that deployment of the stuff that's involved with your community.
Yeah. So regardless if you go through the ancient import export or
so import export. So the last time that I tried to do an import export, it was not going well and it did not work like it did before. You are going to want to use a change set, metadata API, or the experience bundle API. Those are going to be my recommendations at this point in time.
Right, and also, I mean, this is for people who are like finally not crying anymore over the S controls and are like still very proud of their visual force pages.
And those site.conf files don't carry everything over like a change set, like metadata API and like the experience bundle API do either. Those items still don't bring everything, but they bring a lot more than the import export does. You're going to have to redo your text formatting in your text components.
For like HTML areas.
Not for your rich text, not your HTML, but your rich
text. Like the rich text, like often the boilerplates for here, put like dynamic bullet list here. This is just my.
You're going to need to redo your headlines. You're going to have to go back in. You're probably going to have to make modifications to some of your other components. Some of your components may get corrupted. You may lose some components on some pages because the import export can't migrate them.
You just reminded me of something else I was going to bring up. So I know that you and I have dealt with the whole, can't remove this design attribute or can't remove this implements interface, right? So for people tuning in, what'll happen is you've got an Aura. We're not going to go in the LWC version, but I'm sure there's some equivalent frustration over when you've got a design file. What do you call it? Like the design thing, design file.
The design file?
Yeah, like something where if you've got something that you can drag onto either the app builder or community builder, it's something where you can set like runtime variables on your component, right? That you're dragging onto something. If you've got a design attribute and the component is in use somewhere, can't change it. Like they lock you down. But also, if your component is on a community or Lightning app builder page, and you try to remove that interface that says, I'm allowed to be here, unlike deleting a field that's on a layout and it just removes it, it's like, oh, you can't remove me. I'm in use on a page, which is something that the Experience Bundle API helps with. So get this. If you, let's say you've got my aura component.cmp. Uses controller, my aura controller. If that Apex class, my aura controller, calls my aura utility Apex class, and the utility Apex class becomes invalid, right? There's ways that you can make Apex become invalid and not get a compile time error. Test class, biggest culprit. It will remove it from the page structure. It takes, like, as far as I've seen, it will take it off of the page.
Joe back.
Like, what would happen? Which, if you've got the Experience Bundle API and you're pulling from your org, you could, and you're using version control, you could see that difference and go, hey, where did that go? But yeah, heads up, that cost me a good day.
Nice.
Or a good day. It was a good day. But heads up to anyone that can very well bring components off the page if they were previously valid. So
Cool.
very cool.
Well, I know that we've got a few minutes over here, but this has been awesome, man. I think we've got some valuable information out there. At least I've learned some things. I don't know about you, but I have. I will definitely make sure that we get the link to all these fun deployment steps into the description as well.
Experience Bundle API release notes.
Yep.
Yeah. Probably some links on how to deal with that design component loveliness.
Right. I loved it. And you know what? I can tell you, as somebody that spends a lot of time in that, in the community space, I love when my developers use the design component and have a lot of items in there so that our properties panel is all pretty.
Just to wrap up today, one of the things I'm doing, besides making all of the, taking off the implements when I don't need those child components to be there anymore, is removing boilerplate Oradoc and design files. And for some reason, like that's the problem, is what do you not use 90% of the time? Oradoc, design.
This is this is for you to put documentation here.
Yeah, and but like if you're gonna, when you spin something up in SFDX, it creates all the files.
Yeah.
Don't keep a helper with my action function if it's empty. You know, let's delete that. Or I thought I got rid of a whole bunch of SVG files, because if we need the default one, why are we having it there? I randomly have a bunch of blank SVG files on our components. Like it's not even the default Lightning one. It's actually an SVG file, but an empty body. So cleaning that up, and just make sure you know that if you create an Aura component through SFDX, it will create all 6 or 7 files. You don't need them, but please use Oradoc, use design files. But if you're not going to, don't track them.
Keep them.
Don't include them in your repo. Don't deploy them. Yeah.
Good advice, man. Good advice. No need to put junk in the repo or in the org.
And you know, exercise, eat healthy, don't smoke, wear a seatbelt.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. You know, use that paper towel to open up the doorknob.
Don't touch the bathroom door. It's like just putting your hands back in the
Use
toilet.
the foot plate. Use the foot plate if you got a foot plate.
But no, well, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at MeganSF, MEIGHANSF. And then Nathan.
You can follow me at S-Force-Be with you, the letter S, FORCEBEWITH. Why? Oh,
because we love you. And then don't forget the infamous RJ, to follow RJ. And then there's Adam Daw, both of them on Twitter. Those are their Twitter handles. And don't forget to subscribe and follow. Subscribe and follow. Buttons galore.
Right down here. Happy console logging and happy debugging, people.
Yeah, and until next time, peace.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.